'cause I see the born of no return. Just ahead now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just
Well, good evening, everybody. Congratulations, you've made it to another Tuesday. It's now March 3rd, 2015. Goodbye, February. March, maybe it'll warm up a little bit now, right? Wrong. Current reports are it's supposed to be cold for at least another couple of weeks, so, batten down the hatches and get used to it. Light up the wood stove, Zero. It's gonna be another couple of weeks of chilly out there. As a matter of fact, I heard a nasty rumor today that here in my area, just south of the cesspool, Washington D.C., we may see 8 inches of snow tomorrow. I'm hoping they're wrong. You never know when the weather people make a prediction like that. If I believed Al Gore, I would, get on my Speedo for tomorrow. But no, it's supposed to be cold again. Needless to say, you are listening to Wide Awake News on the Rinse Radio Network. I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Hendershot, and for about the next hour or so, I'm going to be barking at the moon as if anybody out there was really listening or really cared. I guess in the news today, the big item that everybody's got to be talking about has got to be Benjamin Netanyahu, the guy who runs Israel. He apparently snuck in with a bunch of illegals across the border came in through Mexico, had to sneak in because apparently Obama had not invited him. 5 million illegals from Central America, no problem. But apparently, Obama did not care to have Netanyahu stop by. But he did get an invitation from this guy, Boehner, the Republican, in charge. Now, there's going to be a couple of times tonight where, I want you to pay attention. A lot of people had great expectations when the Republicans took over the Congress. Everybody had high hopes. Everybody was listening to the propaganda, how they were going to eliminate the president's edict that all the illegal immigrants were going to now be legal. He was going to, the Republicans were going to come in, they were going to reverse Obamacare. They made us all kinds of promises to get in, and now that they're in, we're starting to see their true colors. And Boehner invited Netanyahu to come in and give his canned presentation on how evil Iran is and how perfect Israel is. Now, this is the same speech that this guy's been given since 1986. It's kind of like, those motivational speakers, they get out there and they got their same little canned spiel that they give. And if you go to one of their spiels and you kind of think, this guy might be onto something, you go to see the next spiel, you hear the same stuff over and over and over again. You just had to pay for a second ticket. And that's what we heard from Benjamin Netanyahu today. Was, Iran is evil, Iran's going to have a bomb next month. This guy has been promising us that Iran was going to have nuclear weapons in 6 months for about 2 decades now. Okay, so I know what's going through your head. All right, I'm all in favor of Iran. I'm an Iran supporter. I'm a closet Muslim, and I got it in for Israel. And I'm just another anti-Semite Israel basher. Not really. I mean, truth be told, I mean, the guys that are running Iran right now, they're not exactly gems either. I mean, they've got their issues. But even Netanyahu's own boys in the Mossad have fessed up that, the Iranian nuclear program is not targeted at producing nuclear weapons. Now, yes, they would like to get into the business of producing medical isotopes. They would like to get into the business of producing electricity with nuclear power. All things that they are allowed to do under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which they are signatory. One nation in the world who is rumored to have at least 80 thermonuclear devices. Now, these are hydrogen bombs, not just your basic little nukes. These are the big bad ones. That has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement is Israel. And we have evidence coming out of South Africa that indicates that Israel was negotiating with South Africa to provide them with nuclear weapons, something that is strictly forbidden by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement, to which Iran is a signatory. So, in all this pushing and shoving over, should Iran be allowed to develop nuclear weapons or not? I mean, frankly, if I was Iran, knowing full well that my biggest potential adversary in the region, Israel, already possessed nuclear weapons, I think I might want to have a few, if for no other reason than to have some sort of a deterrent. But, on this issue, you're going to have to consider and make up your own damn mind. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there is no evidence that Iran is currently working on developing nuclear weapons. They apparently have a technology that allows them to enrich uranium up to about 20%. Now, that's adequate to produce a dirty bomb, not really enough for a proper fusion weapon. And there's no indication that they have a program that might lead them to develop a hydrogen bomb or perhaps even a modern neutron bomb. So there, all of this hype over Iran and their nuclear program really only has one objective, and that is to keep Iran down so that should Israel decide to move in and kick their ass, they'll have an easy go of it. And that is my opinion. You're going to have to make up your own damn mind. This report came out last week. There were hints about this readily available last week, but the story was still developing during my last broadcast, so I really didn't feel I was prepared to comment on it yet. But Greece had an election recently, and they elected in what most would call a left-wing socialist type government that was threatening to pull an Iceland on the international banking cartels and basically tell them to go pound sand, that the debt that you say we have incurred was fraudulent debt. We don't owe that money. Basically, take it, stick it where the sun don't shine. We ain't going to pay. And, there were many who thought this was an optimistic sign, that it showed that, yes, there were nations in Europe, there were people in Europe that still had a backbone and might actually stand up to the international banking cartel and say, enough is enough. This is ridiculous. Let's just knock this off. There was even some indication that Greece might withdraw from the European Union, ditch the euro, go back to their native currency, the drachma, and Russia apparently was courting Greece to join the BRICS nations. So a lot of people looked at this and said, oh boy, if Greece goes down, Italy's not going to be far behind, then Spain, then possibly France, Portugal. This could start the dominoes falling that could lead to the end of the European Union. A lot of people were making such predictions. Now, whether the new elected leadership in Greece happened to, have issues with little boys or goats or whatever, we really don't know. But I have never seen so fast a 180 in my life. I mean, these guys came in thumping their chest. We're bad. We're going to stick it to the bankers. We're going to tell them to pound sand. We're going to take care of you people. All this austerity, it's a thing of the past. We're the good guys. We're riding in on our white charger, and we're going to slay this dragon. And it seems like overnight they've done a 180. They've made some kind of a deal with the international banking cartel that's a sweetheart deal for the banks. It continues the austerity in Greece, basically forestalls any move that Greece might have made to join up with the BRICS nations instead of the EU, foregoes, it pretty much puts on a back burner any possibility that Greece might drop out of the European Union or ditch the euro. So basically somebody either had something on these guys, little boys, sheep, who knows? I mean, when you're talking about politicians, it could be anything. They might even have got the lowdown from our own NSA. I mean, why do you think they do all that spying? You really think they're interested in your grandma's cookie recipe? No, they're trying to get something on all these politicians. They want to make sure they got something on everybody. So if it comes down to brass tacks, push comes to shove, they need something they can use for pressure. They got something. And it's starting to look like maybe they had something on this new leadership in Greece, because they have fallen right into line, and they are marching to the EU's drum. And the people of Greece, you won't hear much about it on your local TV, but they're pissed. And yeah, they're back in the streets, and we may hear about riots in Greece before too long. It's always hard to tell. One just never knows. But the Greeks were very loud when this new party came in, the Syriza party, and I think that if the Syriza party disappoints them, they'll be back out there making noise again. You wonder, where's the noise here in the United States? I keep listening for it. Everybody's pretty quiet out there. There's problems in Ukraine, there's problems in Greece. But, we've still got this fracas going on in the Middle East. We got this thing called the Islamic State. Remember? They used to be ISIS, and then there were ISIL, and now they're just IS. Well, whatever the name has this week. An interesting report came out of KTICradio.com. This is an ABC affiliate. This report has a headline, U.S. not providing air support for Iraqi push to retake Tikrit. Tikrit is a town in northern Iraq. That was the hometown of Saddam Hussein. And the ISIS fellers apparently took Tikrit some bit ago. And Iraqi forces, yes, Iraq does still have a military. They do still have some military capability, even though we pretty much blew them back to the Stone Age during the last war. But they've made a concerted effort to retake Tikrit from ISIS. The U.S. is not providing air support, which is Somewhat interesting because, in theory, the government of Iraq is our ally. I mean, they're our puppet regime. And in theory, the United States is engaged in active hostilities with this ISIS outfit. Now, you would think that the U.S. would be cooperative in an effort to push ISIS out of Tikrit. But no, the U.S. is standing down. You know who is helping the Iraqis in retaking Tikrit? Yeah, Netanyahu's bad guys, Iran. That is a very confusing situation over there. So our ally has allied up with our enemy to whack our enemy, who is apparently our ally. Yeah, you know, I'll have to think about that one some more. On Sunday, Iraqi Prime Minister al-Abadi announced that the Iraqi military had launched a major operation to recapture the northern province of Saladin from ISIS. Tikrit is located 80 miles north of Baghdad and was seized by ISIS fighters last summer. An Iraqi military spokesman told ABC News Monday that ISIS fighters were retreating from some areas in the province that had come under attack by Iraqi military. However, those claims could not be independently verified. Now, we did hear a rumor not too long ago. I was not able to find any proof that it actually came down, but I did hear rumors that a couple of British cargo airplanes were shot down by the Iraqis while they were in the process of delivering weapons and supplies to ISIS. You know, I scratched my head when I heard that report, and I tried to confirm it from, you know, other reliable sources. Couldn't find any confirmation. But, you know, today my ears perked up when I was checking out news items for tonight's presentation. I found one out of Activist Post, which I have not been able to confirm. So please consider the source. Make up your own damn mind on this. But this one is a little disturbing. Iraqi army allegedly downs a U.S. helicopter for providing weapons to ISIS. So apparently a U.S. helicopter was delivering food, ammunition, supplies, whatever. The Iraqi army has once again claimed that it has downed a NATO aircraft that was providing military assistance directly to ISIS, according to Iranian Fars news agency. This time the Iraqis are claiming they shot down a U.S. helicopter in the al-Baghdadi region in Anbar province just last week. The reason for shooting the helicopter, according to Fars, and apparently high-ranking Iraqi officials, was that the helicopter was carrying weapons to ISIS. Like I say, our ally has allied up with our enemy to fight our enemy who just happens to be our ally. I know. It's very confusing, very confusing. But, you know, to add to the confusion, and confound you even further with complexity, how about this little ditty from Global Research? Israel's IDF supports Syrian opposition rebels. Shin Bet secretly arrests a fellow named Golani Druze, accusing him of exposing the IDF-ISIS collaboration. Wait a minute. I thought this Islamic State was the deadly enemy of Israel. I know, it gets so confusing. Israel's Shin Bet arrested Golani Druze Sedki al-Market, age 48. Until his release in 2012, he'd been the longest-serving Israeli security prisoner, having spent 27 years detained. News of his arrest is under gag order by Israeli media. The gag is laughable since the arrest has already been reported not only by Syria media but in Hebrew Facebook posts as well. Though Israel's security services hasn't offered any reason for his arrest, it's likely they're angered because a week ago he followed Syrian rebels to a meeting inside Israeli-occupied territory. The rebels met with IDF forces who'd previously been shown to receive logistical and intelligence support from Israel in previous reports here and in Israel. Okay, now, let me see if I can get this straight. My ally has allied up with my enemy to fight my ally, who just happens to be my enemy, who is also allied with my other ally. Is that making any sense to you? I tell you, a poor old Southern boy gets mighty confused with with all these, crazy relationships. It's hard to tell who the good guy is and who the bad guy is without a scorecard. I'm hearing the music. I got to step out for a few minutes, let the studio sell some products to keep the lights burning, but I'll be back with more Barking at the Moon right after. Alrighty, and we are back from that blatantly commercial interruption to the evening's presentation. Now, on this Middle East thing, I've thought about it, and I think what it boils down to, here again, this is my opinion. You're going to have to look at all the various information that's coming out of that area and see if you can correlate it and collate it and tabulate it and make up your own damn mind. But, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, okay, so there's this outfit out there called ISIS. And they're fighting and feuding with a guy we don't like, a guy named Assad, who happens to run a sovereign nation called Syria. Now, as long as they're fussing and feuding with this guy we don't like in Syria, they may be jerks, but there are jerks. So, we give them some weapons, we give them some food, we give them some whatever, whatever they need to, shoot our enemy in the butt is okay. But now, when they turned around and started messing with one of our buddies in Iraq, we got a little bit pissed off with them, and, we went in and we wanted to shake them up a little bit, put them back on target. No, you don't understand. You're supposed to be over here fighting this guy. You're not supposed to be over here fighting our buddy. It's almost like we, trained a pit bull, sick pit bull on our adversary, and the pit bull turned around and bit us on the butt instead. But they are still engaged with the adversary that we want taken down, so we can't totally cut them off. So to ensure plausible deniability so that, it doesn't point directly back to us, we get our buddies in Saudi Arabia to ship them, some weapons and some food and supplies and things to keep them going. And we arrange with some of our other buddies over in Israel to make sure that they've got good intelligence on the Syrian front that we wish them to be involved with. But, even though they are still a problem for our buddies in Iraq, anytime the Iraqis make significant moves against them, we kind of step back and don't really help our buddies in Iraq to deliver a crushing blow. I don't believe we wish to have them crushed. I believe we wish them to destabilize any stable government in the Middle East. Right now, we wish them to destabilize Syria. If that just happens to disable Iraq, well, it's kind of a cost of doing business, as long as their next target is Iran. That, I think, is the game plan. Now, do I know this for a fact? Hell no. I'm just looking at it. I'm trying to put all the various pieces together, and that's what I've come up with. What does it look like to you? Now, on the home front, Did you know that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is a U.S. federal agency who's supposedly, the decider when it comes to whether or not the economy is suffering inflation or deflation. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they should proclaim that inflation is dead. Did you hear that? Let me say that again. Inflation is dead. Did you know that your costs were reduced by 0.1% last year? Yeah. Last year, it cost you 0.1% less to get by than it did a year before. Okay, so it's the statistics, statistics and lies. It's all good. The American consumer. Now get this. Now, as I'm reading this next bit, I want you to take out your wallet and I want you to open it up and take a look inside. It's all good. The American consumer is so flush with cash. They ain't looking in my wallet, I'll tell you that for sure. The American consumer is so flush with cash, they decided to spend less money for the second month in a row. You're flush with cash, so you decided to spend less money. Here, it's almost as confusing as the Middle East situation, but let's move further and see what they've got to say here. The Wall Street shysters are so happy with declining consumer spending, declining corporate profits, and a global recession, they pushed the NASDAQ up to 5,000 for the first time in 15 years. Whoopee! Now, we do know that gasoline prices are down, okay? I mean, and that's a welcome relief because, gasoline was starting to become a major expense for many of us, and there for a while it was looking like gasoline was going to be up around $5 a gallon in the blink of an eye. And for the time being, we are enjoying something of a reprieve from the high gas prices that we were facing. And I understand that the United States is so awash with oil right now, they're running out of places to store it. Yeah, we got more oil than we have nooks, crannies, and salt caverns to store it in. So, if there is one area of the economy where consumers have made a little bit of a gain, it's probably in gasoline prices. But there's always a flip side to these things. There's other things besides gasoline. I mean, I know some in the audience are vegetarians and they're going to get all upset with me, but, heck with you. I like a nice steak from time to time. Beef and veal is up 21% in the last, 22.5%. Beef and veal is up 22.5% over the last year. Ground beef, your average Saturday cookout hamburger is up 21%. Pork is up 7.4%. Ham is up 11.5%. Whole chickens are up 6.1%. Fresh fish, if you're still eating fish, I'm almost scared to eat it. Especially fish that's been fooked. Nothing from the West Coast, I can tell you that. Fish is up 3.5%. Eggs, you like some eggs in the morning? 8.2%. Cheese is up 7.8%. Fresh fruit is up 4%. Lettuce is up 12%. Tomatoes are up 9%. Coffee's up 6%. 6%, is that all? Seems to me I was paying about $8 for a 3-pound can not too long ago, and now I'm paying $13. I would have bet that coffee was up almost 30% in the last year, but BLS is saying it's only up 6.7%. Butter is up 20%. Restaurant food's up 3%. Housing, cost of housing. They're telling me here that housing is only up 2.9%. Now, I'm not sure about that. Maybe, maybe not. Electricity. Electricity right now is up 2.5%. But just wait until Obama puts his new electricity tax on you. We'll see what happens with that. College tuitions. They're telling me college tuitions only went up 3.6% in the last year. I don't know about that one either, but that's the BLS statistics. Bottom line is, just about every category of product that most people in America use every single day is up. But the BLS is claiming happy times are here again. The prices are actually down. I'm hearing the music. I've got to slide out of here for a moment while the studio sells some goods, and you betcha I'll be back with my last segment of Barking at the Moon in just a few moments. Boy, last segment. I tell you, the hour went fast tonight, and I've still got quite a few more articles I kind of wanted to get through. I hinted about this one early on, but House Speaker John Boehner announced that the House will vote on a clean, what they refer to as a clean Department of Homeland Security funding bill. Now, the backstory on this one is that, they were holding DHS funding hostage to the repeal of Obama's pen and phone legislative action that would legalize a whole lot of these illegal aliens. Okay, and it looked like the Congress might have finally grown a backbone and might actually be doing something on behalf of the American public. Well, those of us with a suspicious nature, and frankly, I have become very cynical about American politics, kind of read between the lines and said, yeah, that is like a, snowball's chance in hell. And sure enough, the Congress caved. They are not going to pursue a repeal of Obama's amnesty program, and instead they're going to let the courts deal with it. Now, Obama has clearly legislated from the executive office, okay? In a corporation, that would be perfectly reasonable. In a democratic republic with 3 branches of government, 1 a judicial, 1 an executive, and 1 a legislative, the executive office is not supposed to be producing legislation on its own. In theory, Obama has certainly overstepped the bounds of what the president is supposed to be able to do under the Constitution. Legislature comes from the legislature, and Obama is there to enforce the legislature's wishes. In theory, Obama should be under impeachment right now for exceeding his authority as president. Will it happen? No. I think a blue dress made impeachment something of a laughingstock some years back. And at this point, I think the chances of Obama actually facing impeachment in his last couple of years are pretty slim. Now, you got all these illegal immigrants here in the country, and a lot of them can't find jobs because the economy is tough, and even those low-paid, under-the-table jobs that a lot of the illegals take, work that everybody says Americans won't take. Actually, what it boils down to is Americans will not take these jobs for the same price that an illegal alien might take it. The government really wants all these people here because, in theory, these are potential Democratic voters. They're going to reduce the they're going to help the government reduce the average standard of living for Americans across the board. They're going to drive wages down. They're going to do all the great things that the globalists wish to happen in the United States. So we got to keep them here. We got to keep them happy. What can we do to make their life better so that they won't get discouraged and hightail it back home? Well, here's Obama's immigration fix. 4 million illegals who never paid dime one in U.S. taxes are going to get 3 years of tax refunds. Wait a minute. How the hell does that work? You have to admit it sounds crazy. The normal rule is that the IRS can audit for 3 years, so you can usually go back 3 years to amend your return or claim a credit you forgot. What if you never had any income or failed or never filed a return? Just wait. Since an illegal immigrant under President Obama's executive action can now get a Social Security card, the immigrant roadmap is clear. First, get the social, then claim the earned income tax credit for 3 open tax years. And voila, the IRS sends you 3 years of tax refunds. So come to America illegally, sign up under Obama's amnesty plan, and we're going to pay you a bonus. Oh, but wait a minute. How are we going to pay for this? The government ain't got no money. Where are we going to get to? I got it. Obama's been so successful with his cell phone and his pen, just writing legislation from the Oval Office. Here's an idea. Obama, very interested in raising taxes through executive action. Yeah, okay, I know. If you read the Constitution, the legislature, the Congress, is supposed to have the power of the purse. They're supposed to be the ones who levy taxes. But just like with Obamacare, just like with immigration, just like with so many other of these executive actions, Obama is now seriously considering and investigating ways that with his cell phone and pen, he can just stroke a tax increase right through. How does that sit with you? What do you think? I mean, does that sound like a good idea? See, here's the key. In theory, the government of the United States is supposed to be empowered by you. Okay? In theory, your consent to be governed by this government is supposed to be informed consent. You vote for a Congress, knowing full well that it's the Congress who sets the tax laws. The executive, via the IRS, enforces the tax laws. The tax laws are written by the Congress. The executive branch is in charge of enforcing those laws. Obama has decided that that's kind of a messy process, and he ought to just be able to decide how much of your money his programs are entitled to without that messy Congress getting in the way. The problem is, once this precedent is set, once Obama sets this as a precedent, the next president who comes in, who will probably be a Republican, because I suspect Americans at this point are so angry with the Democrats that even if the Republicans are stupid enough to put up a John McCain or a Jeb Bush, I think people are fed up enough with the Democrats that they'll vote in the Republican just out of frustration. Because, they've got two choices on the ballot. They can choose poo-poo or doo-doo. Take your choice. You want poo or you want doo. All right, they both smell bad. So doo-doo over here pissed me off most recently, so I think I'll vote for poo-poo. It's unfortunate, but I suspect that's the way most Americans will think. That's probably how they will vote, and I suspect that a Republican will be in office next time. The Republican who comes in will probably be some sort of nutbag neocon who's just hell-bent on taking us to war or expanding the wars that we currently have in place. Will that Republican roll back any of the nonsense that's been laid on us by Obama? Hell no, because now it's his nonsense. And he can use that tax authority to make sure that there's less money for bread and butter and more money for guns and bombs. That's just how it goes. Yeah, I know. You ain't living in Kansas anymore. Sorry. You know. You have to laugh at it, though. I mean, really. When they come up with this stuff, you have to look them in the eye and you have to laugh at them. All right? You have to show them that they ain't fooling you. It's hilarious what they're doing. If it wasn't costing blood and treasure, it could easily pass for a sitcom. We've had more trouble with, cops on steroids. There was a fatal shooting in L.A. A guy, his big crime this week was sleeping on the street. He wound up shot dead for the vicious crime of sleeping on the street. Now, this was not a nice man. This man was, a convicted robber, but he had served his time. He was out of jail. In theory, he was a free man, should have been given the same respect of anybody else, but, couldn't find a job, couldn't find work. He found a warm spot on a street somewhere and fell asleep. Cops took exception, tried to wrestle him. The cops say, he was reaching for one of the cops' guns. The video, the closed-circuit television doesn't support the police assertions, and it appears this guy may indeed have been yet another innocent civilian shot by a cop on steroids. But, we should be trusting the cops, right? Because it's just a few bad apples out there, and we shouldn't say all the cops are bad just because, a few bad apples. One of the worst days of Douglas Dedinger's life began with him handing an envelope to a police officer. In order to help out his family and earn a quick $50, Dedinger agreed to act as a process server. Process server, you know what that is? You're being sued. They hire somebody to hand you the paper saying, you got to appear in court. You're being sued. The handoff went smoothly, but Dedinger said the reaction from the police officer and a group of officers and attorneys clustered around him turned his life upside down. What happened next was an entirely fabricated claim that he had assaulted the officer. Luckily, he had video. Bottom line is that this cop's buddies and a bunch of attorneys, rallied to his defense and said this guy Dedinger had assaulted him and made all sorts of claims. And basically, this process server was facing a decade in jail on charges that were false. They were lies. Now, did any of the cops and attorneys, did they face criminal action for lying? Of course not. I mean, they're special. I'm hearing the music. I've done my share of barking at the moon for this week. But you betcha, I'll be back next Tuesday, and we will just do it all over again. Y'all have a good evening. All righty. Well, did I do okay tonight? I had a couple articles that I did not get to tonight. That always seems to be the way it is. I always seem to bite off a little bit more than I can chew. But let's get out these last couple of. I'll have more on that next week. I'll have more on that next week. Here's talking about these crazed cops. Okay, here's a here's an article that's a little more upbeat. Okay, rather than degenerate into a lawless land where criminals rule the streets, a Texas town that fired its entire police department has seen a 61% decrease in crime. I'm going to read that one more time. Just I want you to get this punchline. Rather than degenerate into a lawless land where criminals rule the streets, a Texas town that fired its entire police department has seen a 61% decrease in crime. Now, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. In 2012, Sharpstown, a community of 66,000, located just southwest of Houston, declined to renew its contract with the constable's office, essentially dismissing the cops. You're gone. Hit the road, Jack. Instead, the Sharpstown Civic Association hired Seal Security Solutions, a private firm, to patrol their streets. The private security firm places its officers on continuous patrol in their assigned neighborhoods as opposed to the strategy of intermittent presence that the constables embraced. It's either somebody's meeting. They say SEAL also relies heavily on crime statistics when it designs its patrol efforts. The second thing that drastically reduced the crime is that we do directed patrols, meaning we don't just put an officer out there and say, here, go patrol. We look at recent crime status and we work off those crime stats. So if we have hot spots in those areas, say for that month, we focus and concentrate our efforts around those hot spots. Law enforcement officers are trained to be reactive. They're out there to run calls. They're running one call to another. So they're reacting to something that's already happened. Private security, the way that we train our guys, it's more proactive, meaning that we're in the community proactively patrolling to prevent those crimes. Interesting. Now, would that work in your area? One thing about a community hiring a private security firm is that the police action, here again, police, policy enforcement, police, policy enforcement. It has nothing to do with law enforcement. Police means policy enforcement. Back in the day, there was the marshal. Okay? The town might hire a sheriff. Okay? And these were law enforcement officers. They were there to enforce the law. In big cities, the business community would get together and hire a private police force that was owned by the business community to enforce their policy in their jurisdiction. Over the years, the police force policy enforcement has expanded to encompass counties and, in many cases, even states. You probably have a state police in the state you live in. So we transitioned over a long period of time from the theory of law enforcement to this phenomena that is really policy enforcement. It has nothing to do with the law. It's purely a matter of policy. Statutory law. They enforce statutes. They are, by definition, revenuers. They are there for the specific purpose of generating revenue. In the case of a private police force where the community hires its own police, at the very least, that police would be, I think, more responsive to that community that hired them. In any case, that's the theory. You're going to have to consider, make up your own damn mind. This is an interesting one. Pillow Talk. This is the headline on this article from RT. Pillow Talk. Ex-CIA head Petraeus. Remember Petraeus? Pleads guilty to giving classified material to his lover. Yeah, that's her pictured next to him there. Former CIA Director David Petraeus has entered into an agreement with federal prosecutors to plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge of mishandling classified information the government says he provided to his mistress. Yeah, you know how these military guys are. They have a real hard time with pistols. They cannot seem to keep their pistol in their pocket. The Department of Justice filed 3 documents in the U.S. District Court pertaining to a criminal information, a plea agreement, and a statement of facts. The agency said in a statement, the deal covers 1 count of unauthorized removal and retention of classified material, which carries a maximum penalty of 1 year in prison, a $100,000 fine, or both, as well as up to 5 years probation. Petraeus was accused of giving Paula Broadwell, his biographer and mistress, high-level classified documents relating to the 2012 attacks on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. The plea agreement will allow the retired 4-star general to avoid a trial where the asserted details of his affair with Broadwell might become public. Petraeus is still married to Holly Petraeus, the assistant director for the Office of Service Member Affairs and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Petraeus's extramarital activities led to his resignation as the director of the CIA. A probe of Broadwell's emails revealed Petraeus's affair with his biographer and turned up the classified information. Now, the classified information that Petraeus divulged to his mistress was significantly more, shall we say, damaging than anything Edward Snowden happened to make public. But it looks like Petraeus is going to get a slap on the hand. No trial. He will never sit in a 6x9 with a guy named Bubba who thinks he's pretty, and he'll probably have to pay a small fine, a little slap on the wrist. Naughty, naughty, General Petraeus. John McCain, of course, is crying in his beer because he says, we're pillaring one of the greatest military minds the U.S. has, and we're really going to need this guy to fight whatever war Israel decides to throw our children on the bayonets of. Meanwhile, Edward Snowden says, boy, if I could get a deal like that, I'd come home in a heartbeat. And yeah, Edward Snowden is trying to negotiate his way back into the United States, and he's looking at this deal that was given to Petraeus, saying, "Hey, look, I made public some dirt, but I made it public with the best of intentions. I did everything the right way. I tried to go up the chain of command. The chain of command stifled me. I tried to go to the media stifled me. I was pushed into a corner where, I saw, criminal activities going on that I needed to blow the whistle on, and nobody was taking me serious. So, I did what I had to do as a loyal American, and yes, I divulged some dirt, but, the dirt I divulged was nowhere near as damaging as what this guy Petraeus gave up. Give me a deal like Petraeus got, and I'm on the next flight home." As usual, this stuff is, straight. It's funnier than fiction. You can't make stuff like this up. This is reality. You can't make it up. And Hillary Clinton, yeah, here's no Hillary Clinton, who, in theory is probably, she will probably be the Democratic candidate. I mean, the dream ticket, as far as the globalists are concerned, is neocon Bush versus neocon Clinton. I mean, they got both of these people in their hip pocket that, they got so much dirt on both of them that neither one would step out of line. I mean, As far as the globalists are concerned, give me a Bush, give me a Clinton. Hey, it's a known quantity. I win either way. So, that is their dream ticket. So, in theory, this woman Clinton will be the Democratic candidate for president next time around. And she will be the designated loser to whoever the Republicans put up. And it'll probably be this clown Jeb Bush, who can't seem to decide what his position on immigration is. He'll flip-flop in the course of the same day. But Hillary Clinton, bless her pointed head, while she was Secretary of State, chose not to use a State Department email account and instead used her personal email account. And, all this stuff about Benghazi and her involvement in Benghazi, they kept trying to get Hillary's email, because, everybody says Hillary was, calling the shots on this thing. Hillary was involved up to her eyeballs. And they said, okay, well, let's see Hillary's email. This is supposed to be the property of the federal government. Every email communication that Hillary Clinton originated or received is supposed to be the property of the U.S. government. That is the law. But instead of using an email account that the federal government had control of and could archive, this woman used her personal email account, which, by the way, is against the law. She violated the law. And, of course, there's no incriminating evidence against her about the Benghazi affair because, all communication she had has conveniently disappeared. Boy, I bet you Lois Lerner is just, laughing. Shoot, dog didn't even have to eat her hard drive. Now, will Hillary Clinton be in that 6x9 with Bubba? No. As a matter of fact, she will probably be the Democratic candidate for President of the United States. So, yeah. Do you ever get the idea that just maybe, the justice system in the United States is kind of tiered? There's the justice for us, and there's the justice for just us. What do you think? You walk into 7-Eleven and try to sneak out with a bottle of Ripple under your jacket. Man, you're in that 6x9 so fast, it makes your head spin. Big banker wipes out the retirement fund of 500,000 people. He gets paid a bonus. Yeah. Just us and just us. Yeah. Justice. Yeah. That's the way it works. All animals are created equal, but pigs are just a little more equal than others. That's it, guys. That was all my prepared articles for tonight's presentation. I now turn it over to the audience. What hot items in the news? What hot items in the news did I miss this guy? Well, this week did I miss any really good ones? Would you pay Hillary Clinton? I'll tell you what, Hillary Clinton could not pay me enough. I mean, have you seen that woman's ankles? Ugh. I don't even think Hillary's girlfriend is doing her anymore. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Shubas, the LA Times is reporting that the state of California is altering students' SAT scores based on race? Shubas is telling me that the LA Times reports that the state of California is altering students' SAT scores. If you're black, you get an extra 230 points just because you're black. If you're Hispanic, you get an extra 185 points just because you're Hispanic. If you're Asian, they're going to penalize you 50 points just because you're Asian. And if you're whites, they don't give you any points, they don't take any away. You're kidding me. I got to have a link to that article. I'll tell you what, if I can find two sources that supports that argument, man, that's going to be my lead item next week. Because that's just dirty. That is just foul. It ain't the best guy that gets the points anymore. Martin Luther King would be rolling over in his grave over something like that. He said something about content of character rather than color of skin. But well. Tom Shum is a state auditor shooting. I didn't catch that one, Maury. I must have missed that one. I'll tell you though, if a politician goes off the reservation and doesn't follow orders, either the propeller falls off their airplane, or they're found in a lion's cage, or they commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head twice with a rifle. It's gotten pretty bad out there. Those who are in charge will do most anything necessary to stay in charge, including murder. No question about it. And there's bankers, trying to cut off the middle tier of the bankers. Anybody who knows enough to cause trouble might lead up the chain. They're cutting out the middle so that the buck stops with the dead guy. Yeah, I heard about that skyscraper that burned for a couple of days and it's still standing. They'll probably renovate that and move back into it within a year or two. Yeah, there has yet to be a situation where, something as simple as a fire brought down a steel reinforced building. I mean, that does not happen. Bottom line is I think what he's getting at, and I'll have to agree with it, is that the official story of what brought down the Trade Center back in 2001, the official story is the most ridiculous, most absurd, most laughable conspiracy theory of them all. I mean, I think I would believe alien space beam weapons did it before I would believe the official story. I mean, there are so many stories out there that are more plausible than the one the government put forward. It's their story is the most laughable of all the conspiracy theories going. Then we got that old weather satellite blowing up. What do you think blew it up, Shubas? I mean, is anybody speculating? I mean, were the Russians or the U.S. playing with one of their anti-satellite weapons, and that's what blew it up, or did it just blow up for the sake of blowing up? Jet fuel cannot read my lips, jet fuel cannot possibly burn hot enough to melt steel. I'm sorry, it cannot happen. There's been a lot of people who've experimented with that. I mean, could it maybe have weakened the steel? No. I'm sorry. There is no way jet fuel could possibly have melted steel. It don't happen. Might burn up your computer, might burn up your office furniture, but there ain't no way it would, have any impact at all on steel. Yeah, it's all in the 28 pages redacted points the finger at Saudi Arabia. Now, there's no question about it. The Saudis were the bag men. They were the ones who financed the World Trade Center event. They probably did not even know what they were financing. I mean, they're the black bag guys for a lot of dirty deeds. when it gets right down to it, what the 28 pages will never say is that the deed was probably planned and executed by the best of the false flag operators out there, the Israeli Mossad, with help and coaching from our own CIA. Yeah, the interesting Zero says all three were some form of controlled demolition. I mean, I agree. I think those buildings were wired up. See, the trade towers were under renovations for a couple of years before 9/11. I mean, you had that bomb that went off back in the 90s. That went off down in the parking garage underneath on one of the buildings, and the buildings were laced with asbestos. Back in the 60s when those things were built, they were packed with asbestos everywhere. And the elevators needed renovations. So they hired a company that was owned by an Israeli guy to do a lot of these renovations, including the elevator refit. Now, when you're doing an elevator refit, you have access to the internal skeletal structure of those buildings. So there was 2 years that they had to wire those buildings up for a controlled demolition. 2 years. Now, one of the arguments is, it couldn't be a controlled demolition. How would they, airplanes hit the building? How could they get in there and wire those buildings to come down in such a little bit of time? Well, duh. They had 2 years. I mean, this was not a small operation. It was obviously planned well in advance. Speculation? Well, it's all speculation. It's my point is, regardless of what took down the Twin Towers, the official story is bullshit with a capital B. I mean, the official story is impossible. The laws of physics say it's impossible. Now, given that the official story is obviously bullshit, you have to look at the other theories that are available to you and choose the one that is most likely. When all the other possibilities are eliminated, that's what you're left with. And there's also you got to consider Occam's razor. The simplest explanation generally is the real one. Oh, no question. I'm speculating. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But it's pretty obvious that the government has no idea either. So I'm obviously every bit as authoritative as the government. My guess is certainly as valid as theirs. Matter of fact, I think my guess is probably more valid than the guess that the government put out there, because the government's explanation is obviously false. Well, Cooper was a pain in their ass. Cooper had been out of the intelligence community for some years, but he still had contacts within. And not everybody who works for the CIA is a crook. A lot of them are very patriotic individuals who know that the guy sitting right next to them is a crook. Okay, and if you're an insider working for the CIA, you're some kind of an analyst, you're working for the CIA, and you're worried about your pension, or you're worried about committing suicide with 2 rifle shots to the back of the head. You wanted to get some information out. You might leak it out to a guy like Cooper, who you knew was a straight shooter and would not give you up under any circumstances. So Cooper was getting fed inside data, even though he'd been out of the intelligence community for about 10 years when he was doing his radio broadcasts. He knew how the guys in the intelligence community were thinking. He knew which ways they were headed, and he knew people that were still in the community who were honorable men and who were willing to feed him information. So, even though a lot of Bill Cooper's stuff is, I mean, frankly, I think he got gas one night, and I'm not sure which end it was coming out of, but, a lot of his stuff was very reasonable and very well thought out and was probably accurate. Yeah, it was Jowenko, the guy who proposed, back when they were shopping how to take down the trade towers safely. Jowenko was the one who said, "Oh, no problem. You just use some thermite and mini nukes." Was that the guy? He actually wrote a proposal for how to take down the. At one point, they were talking about demolishing the towers. They figured out that when those towers came down, they were going to do a lot of damage to buildings that they would have preferred to keep, so they did not pursue the demolition. But yeah, this guy actually wrote up a proposal of how best to demolish the Twin Towers with minimal collateral damage, and the process that he proposed involved thermite and mini nukes. I mean, he handed them the blueprint. Here's how you do it most effectively, most efficiently, and with the least collateral damage. And they followed his prescription. I'm not your research assistant at Ron Dax. I know I've seen those documents floating around. Although you'll find a lot of crap on veterans today, you will find all of that material published on Veterans Today. It's available at a lot of other sources as well. Veterans Today acts as an aggregator. They pull stuff from a variety of sources and try to organize it concisely. If you're really interested in following up on that discussion, you might want to slide over to Veterans Today. Now, you can't take everything on Veterans Today as gospel. They're like any other aggregator of material. Some of the stuff on Veterans Today is going to be absolute bullshit. So you've got to have your BS filter fully engaged when you're reading their material. But everything that we're discussing will be available on Veterans Today. Well, guys, anything else that I missed? We're almost a half hour overtime at this point. Any hot items in the news that I just absolutely... There was a lot of stuff in the news this past week. Yeah, Dr. Judy Wood is, in my opinion, polluting the well with her material. Now, there may indeed have been. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. People get so wedded to a specific theory. You got one guy out there saying, "Oh, it was super nano thermite did it." You got another guy out there saying, "Oh, it was mini nukes that did it." And then you get the Dr. Judy Wood side of the, "Oh no, they got directed energy weapons that did it." And everybody's fighting amongst themselves. And the government with their bullshit story, they're sitting there laughing at all of you. Because see, all three of those arguments assume a common denominator, that the government's story is bullshit, which is true. Okay, that is the truth. That is the bottom line. Now, whether it was nanothermite or micronukes or directed energy weapons, from my point of view, does not matter. The relevant point is that the government's story was bullshit. We were told a lie. They lied to us. And based on that lie, We went over to Afghanistan and Iraq and killed a couple of million people who never did anything to us. That blood is on our hands. It was done on our behalf, with our money, and our kids pulling the triggers. And it was all done based on a lie. That is the relevant point. Whether it was directed energy weapons or micro nukes or nano, I don't care. I don't care. My government lied to me. And based on a lie, a couple of million people who never did nothing to me lost their lives. I made up my own mind, Adirondacks. I looked at all the various arguments, I looked at all the material that was available to me, and I made up my own damn mind. As I would suggest, you make up your own mind. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Particularly, do not believe the government. They've been proven to be liars more often than not. I'll tell you guys, I'm getting tired. My voice is starting to get scratchy. It's about time I shut this thing down, put on my jammies, and get me some shut-eye. So unless there is a really, really, really good argument out there that we need to discuss, I'm going to bag it. Going once. Come on. Any last-minute ditties from the chat room here? Alrighty, I think that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Hey, I want to thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening with me as I bark at the moon as if I knew what the hell I was talking about. And you betcha, I'll be back next week, and we will do it all over again. Good night, everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Ooh, the love of the old turnarounds. None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? What will you say? And what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, the point of no return is just ahead now.